Candlepin Stars and Strikes is sponsored by McMulkin Chevrolet, Nashua. WNDS Sports presents Candlepin Stars and Strikes, featuring the best candlepin bowlers from all over New England. And now, in our 14th season, your hosts for Candlepin Stars and Strikes, Dick Lutz and Mike Morin.
Everyone, and welcome to Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire, and another edition of Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. Dick Lutz with Mike Morin. It's week 2 of our new season, and Michael, last week we saw Rich Clark start from the number 5 spot and trying to go all the way to the top. It's a long way to go in the ladder series now.
Especially when you bowl so well the first week, you wonder if you can maintain all that momentum, because there are a couple of weeks before Gary Santora, the top seed, appears. So Rich Clark has his work cut out for him today with newcomer Jim Grigaitis.
He took care of Rich Lotto last week. A 428 triple for Rich Clark. Let's meet our bowlers this afternoon. Last week, the number 5 seed and winner of the match, Rich Clark from Bedford, New Hampshire,
who appeared on the Tournament of Champions last season. His season-ending average last year was 128. High single, 195. His high triple is 467. Bowling in a couple of leagues at King Lanes in Manchester and Boutwell's in Concord, New Hampshire.
And he'll be taking on the number 3 seed from Brockton, Massachusetts, Jim Grigaitis.
He's been on the show a couple of times, although not last season. He has a 123 average at the Hanson Bowlodrome in Hanson, Mass. High single is 194. Jim Grigaitis' high triple is 466.
Let's get right to it. It's the second match of our ladder series. Jim Grigaitis taking on Rich Clark from Leda Lanes. We'll return with today's match on WNDS TV. Candlepin Stars and Strikes right after this. We are ready to go with our match here this afternoon as Rich Clark takes on Jim Grigaitis. Rich, the number 5 seed, will be the first to bowl. He was the winner last week in defeating Rich Lottie by a score of 428 to 356. And Rich Clark picks up where he left off, right on the head pin. That was his biggest asset last week, Mike. He was on the head pin most of the match.
He was, and he made a few adjustments after the first string. You may recall he had a couple of marks with 1 and 2 fills, made a minor adjustment, but it turned out to be the best thing he did all day, because he really came crashing back with 153 and 147 his last 2 games.
And he starts out with a 10 box here in the match against Jim Grigaitis, the number 3 seed. Rich from Bedford, New Hampshire, bowls out of King Lanes in Manchester and the Boutwell Lanes in Concord. And he starts with a strike in the second frame. Buried right in the pocket. So now we get a look at Jim Grigaitis for the first time. Jim did not appear in our program last year. He's been on WNDS 3 times over the years. And his first ball is right through for 2. Bowls out of the Hanson Bowlodrome in Hanson, Massachusetts. He's been bowling 32 of his 37 years.
And if indeed he goes on to win and plays down Richmond, the number 2 seed next week, he is a bowling mate of Jim's, also bowling out of the Hanson Bowlodrome.
And it'll be a 9 box to start out. It'll be a 10 box to start out for Jim Grigaitis. You cannot turn your back on these pins at Leda Lanes. A 10 box.
A little correction to the electronic scoreboard, and we're back on top there with 10 to start.
The ball came back and took out the head pin. Now Grigaitis on the head pin that time, but leaves the 7-10 with some wood, playable wood, which makes this makeable, because you just never know what's going to happen.
3 pieces of wood going in 10 different directions. The corner pins waiting.
Jim is sizing it up right now.
Good advice from the crowd. Play the wood.
Well, he got it. Again, you turn your back on the pins, and you never know what's going to happen. It did not appear as though he had a chance, but he got the ricochet. So the mark for Grigaitis in the second frame. Clark bounces one down and has an 8-pin drop on the first ball as he fills the strike. Both bowlers being rooted on by their families, seated in the front row. Clark unable to convert. $10, 39 through 3 for Rich Clark. Rich's wife Cynthia and son Brandon are seated in the front row, while Jim Grigaitis, wife Diane, and son James and daughter Kristen are here right in the front row. You'll get a look at all of the family members throughout the course of the match.
As he refers to his children, Terror 1 and 2, affectionately, of course. And everybody's well behaved so far.
As I mentioned last week, we received a lot of mail during the off season, and I want to acknowledge some of the people who took the time to write. As Clark has the 10 box, I want to thank David Van Wert of Holden, Massachusetts for his nice card. Also want to thank Lil Bergener, who wrote from Merrimack, Massachusetts. We asked people to write in and let us know where they were watching our Candlepin Stars and Strikes shows, and a lot of people responded. Alice and Al Goslin of West Lynn, Massachusetts wrote to say they enjoy watching Candlepin Stars and Strikes every week on WNDS TV. And we appreciate hearing from you. And our mailing address is WNDS TV, 50 Television Place, Derry, New Hampshire. And the zip in Derry is 03038. And it's a 9 box for Jim Grigaitis. And we'll continue to acknowledge those of you who wrote in to us during the course of the broadcast this afternoon and in future weeks. Grigaitis trying to tell the wood what to do.
I think the secret is to turn your back and then it all falls.
But if he's gonna try to slide that wood on the left, I think. Yep, he's gonna try and almost got it.
And we have some dead wood that will need to be removed by our official.
It's going to roll. It's got a shot. Don't go away. Is it still moving? I can't tell.
I think it's come to a stop. Chris Bover.
No, it's still moving. It's still moving. Watch out. He's got a shot at this.
Oh, don't tell me.
He's got a shot at this. It's still moving. It's still going. It's still going. Here it comes. It's got a shot. It stopped. Or did it stop? It looks like it stopped, but it's in play.
Is there anything tougher in play-by-play sports than to talk about a pin that's barely moving? I forgot, was that a 10 or a spare? That's a 10.
That's a 10 box. $59. $43 through 4 for Grigaitis. Now Clark in the 5th box. Picks up a spare. He'll have 59 plus a ball at the halfway point.
Rich's 428 last week was the highest score other than Gary Carrington's 455 last season. Interestingly enough, in the Tournament of Champions, Gary Carrington also had a 428. So Rich Clark is up there with among the highest scores we've seen in our second season since Dick and I are hosting.
Well, Rich gave it the body English that time, trying to move that pin over, but couldn't get the action on it. And an 8 box. 72 through 6 for Rich Clark in this first string of the match. Jim Grigaitis now with 1 mark through 4 boxes, looking to add to that. And he does. In no uncertain terms, a very solid strike for Grigaitis. His first strike, 2nd mark. That one was a second pocket hit to the right, but he gets 7 pins. And he picks up the spare. Spare on top of the strike for Jim Grigaitis. Harold Arthur from Littleton, Mass. writes that he would like us to be a little bit more specific about the timing of the broadcasts He gets confused during the summer reruns and knowing when each of the matches is coming up. And Mr. Arthur, we appreciate your concern. We'll try to keep you posted as best we can during the time frame of our taping and when the matches are going to be aired on WNDS during the course of the season. But we do appreciate hearing from you, and it's nice to know that you're out there. Yeah, that was an interesting shot by Rich Clark,
yeah, how did he
in
get
which nothing
there?
fell.
Pin spinning, nothing fell.
And 8 box for Clark, 80 through 7.
Folks wondering about the World Candlepin Bowling Congress.
I was just wondering about the World Candlepin Congress Pro Tour.
I was reading your mind, oh great Karnak. And this broadcast, the first run is the 11th. Today is the 11th of October. This coming weekend, Lakeside Lanes in Manchester will be the home of the professional bowlers. The best candlepin bowlers in the world will be assembling for a 2-day tournament. They have 6 tournaments over the course of the year. Lakeside Lanes in Manchester, the shifts on Saturday, the 17th of October, are 2 and 6, and then Sunday, the 18th, at 11 a.m. and 2:45 p.m.
Looking for some bonus money now is Jim Grigaitis. He has 2 marks in a row. Fills the spare with a 7. And with some wood, there are some possibilities with this shot.
The 1, the 7, and the 8.
And wood in between. A $50 shot right here for Grigaitis. He will not make it. Or will he?
Turn your back, Jim.
$10 for Grigaitis, 90 through 7, a 10-pin lead box to box.
Get back.
Now Rich Clark is up, has a spare on the board right here.
Mention the World Candlepin Bowling Congress here for just another moment or so.
Grigaitis trumps the spare with a strike in the 8th frame. Now Rich Clark, go ahead.
Yeah, Tony Zernicke, who for many years was the president, has stepped down, and Paul Wambach out of Douglas is the new president of the WCBC. So congratulations to him. Dave Richards, who we saw last year, is vice president, and Mary Ann Kelly of Stoneham is the treasurer clerk. Dottie Lawrick, right here out of Nashua, is the tournament coordinator. So a few new faces in the ruling ranks of the Pro Tour. And some more prize money's been added this year, as a matter of fact, which is good news.
Especially for the bowlers.
Yeah, they don't get to bowl for free. They have entry fees they have to pay, so it all comes back to them if they bowl well.
106 for Rich Clark through 9. Trying to stay away from the split. Can he knock it over? Cannot. And a good try for Clark in trying to convert the spare. He has 115. And a 116 first string for Rich Clark from Bedford. The 5th seed who won last week's match over Rich Lottie. Now Grigaitis with a 100, working on a strike. A chance for a double mark right here. Missed the object pin. Fills the strike with 9. $119 for Grigaitis with a box to go. So a 3-pin lead plus whatever he gets in the 10th frame. Jim is a customer service rep for Hill Pet Nutrition. Just promoted to that position, and we congratulate him for that. Been with the company for about 5 years, he told me. One of the premier pet food distributors.
Yeah, Science Diet is what folks would know the brand as. The company is Hill Pet. My cats Waco and Winnie enjoy the science diet feline maintenance, so I can speak as a satisfied customer. At least they never complain about it, Dick. And then when I run out, I give them tuna for a couple days till I go get another 22-pound sack. Yeah. What's this tuna?
10 bucks for Grigaitis and a 129 and a 13-pin lead for Jim Grigaitis after one. Second string action coming up on Candlepin Stars and Strikes from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on WNDS TV. Jim Grigaitis takes a 13-pin lead into the second string of this match with Rich Clark on Candlepin Stars and Strikes from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Dick Lutz with Mike Morin. Happy you're able to join us as Grigaitis starts out the second string right on the nose with a 9-pin drop. This is the second match of our new season on WNDS TV, and last week we saw Rich Clark defeat Rich Lottie. And now Grigaitis starts out the second string with a spare.
Next week we'll take a look at Don Richmond, his first visit this year, and Gary Santora, who we saw last season, is the top seed. He was far and above the other 4 bowlers below him on the ladder with a 689 qualifying score.
Grigaitis fills the spare with a strike, 2 marks in a row to start out the second string for Grigaitis from Brockton, Massachusetts. Putting the pressure on Rich Clark from Bedford, New Hampshire. And Clark responds with a pocket hit and a 9-pin drop. We told you that Jim Grigaitis is the customer service rep at Hill Pet Nutrition, the Science Diet. So Rich Clark is the farm manager for Clark Farms in Bedford, New Hampshire. And he threw it past the 9-pin.
He has an interesting assortment of hobbies, too, that I don't know how the man has time, because the agriculture farming business is such an all-consuming, especially this time of year.
Well, he lists photography, woodworking, cars, model railroading, and videotaping real freight trains as his hobbies.
And he tells us there are a lot of people that do have that hobby, that like to go out into the hinterlands and tape trains.
That time he missed the head pin, but still has a spare opportunity with all the wood that's on the deck. And really needs to make a spare because Grigaitis is working on a double mark to start the string. He made the spare. Clutch spare for Rich Clark right there, very important for him. And now Grigaitis looks for some bonus money, the first bonus money of the match. $50 for 3 marks in a row. Our triple strike bonus jackpot is at $525. Yeah, Grigaitis has a shot at that. He's got 50 in the bank. This is worth $525 for Jim Grigaitis. Threw it past the head pin.
Well, he doesn't win the $525, but he certainly pads his lead, and as Dick mentioned, gets the $50 bonus money for 3 marks to start this second game.
And another $20 on top of that. So the bonus money piles up for Grigaitis. And Rich Clark tries to respond. He's working on a spare. He puts 8 in the spare. And another spare for Rich Clark. Responding to the pressure. He's been there before.
But even with a pair of strikes, he's opposite a pair of spares. Still losing ground.
3 marks in a row for Rich Clark, $50 in bonus money. And we'll take a break as both bowlers are red hot We'll keep the fires burning. Don't go too far. We'll be right back as Candlepin Stars and Strikes continues on WNDS TV. With the 5th frame of the 2nd string, he has 4 marks in a row to start out. Spare, strike, strike, spare. Rich Clark answered with 3 marks in a row after a 10 box in the 1st frame. Grigaitis working on a spare. Puts a 4 in it.
It's a shame we had to break away for a commercial there because he was on a roll. You hate to stop when you're going so well.
Yeah, they continue to fall. He has a 78 total through 4. $86 right now. 87.5 for Grigaitis. Which, of course, if he keeps the pace up, translates into a 174, which ain't too shabby.
Yes, that would put him over 300 for 2, so on his way to a 400 at this pace.
But Rich Clark has 3 marks in a row himself, so
including
he'll be
a strike
working on that. Now, Grigaitis gave it a shot.
3-9-10 with some wood resting against the 10.
It will be an 8 box for Grigaitis. 95 through 6. Now Rich Clark with 3 marks in a row, working on a strike. Now the wood is in his favor. Well, now it rolled too close to the 5. I'm not sure how that wood plays at this point. He certainly has to go to the left of the wood to give it a shot.
Very similar hit last week cost him the triple strike jackpot. He had a strike, and then he had a shot like that left the 5-10, and then he had another strike. So it could very well have been a double strike for Rich Clark as he still assesses how to take it out.
Almost, but not quite. And that'll be a 10 box for Rich. Received a nice note from Mr. and Mrs. R.A. Roberts of Whitensville, telling me a little bit about the history of Whitensville, that it's a village in the town of Northbridge. And I will tell Mrs. Roberts, for someone such as myself who grew up in Worcester, I knew a little bit about Whitensville,
okay.
But many of you perhaps didn't. And Rich Clark with another mark. That's his 4th mark of the string. And he's trying to stay close to Jim Grigaitis, who came into this string with a 13-pin lead.
Jimmy Grigaitis now falling on some tough times since the 5th and 6th frames were open, and Rich Clark with a good fill in the 6th frame could actually go ahead of Grigaitis after that wonderful start that Jim had.
Another nice note from Phyllis Davis. Thank you, Phyllis, for writing in and letting us know that you're out there watching. 10 box for Grigaitis, 105 through 7.
Jim's hobby is fishing, and plans on introducing his son James to the fishing activity somewhat soon. Great father-son activity.
Mark for Grigaitis in the 8th frame. Marks are coming at a furious pace for these two bowlers. Grigaitis had a 129 in the 1st string. Clark had a 116. Both are on pace to exceed those totals. Right in the pocket. Rich Clark puts a strike inside the spare and another chance for bonus money. Right through the head pin that time.
He spread eagle and the 9-pin in the back, making it even a more difficult spare. He'll go to the left, or probably will.
Puts a 5 in the strike. Takes an 8 box. 120 through 8 for Rich Clark. Jim Grigaitis has 115 plus a ball through 8 frames, and he came in with a 13-pin lead. Now Grigaitis puts an 8 in the spare, takes back the lead in the string. He's added 3 to his 13 pins. He has a 16-pin lead, box to box. And another spare for Grigaitis.
Mark number 6 for Jim this game.
And a chance for more bonus money right here.
He won $70 in the first 4 frames.
Both bowlers seem to really have found the groove here on lanes 33 and 34. Grigaitis just missed the head pin there. Fills the spare with a 6. 139 through 9, so he has 145 at the moment. And a spare and $50.
What a shot. 8-pin, the last to go.
Another $50 in bonus money. He has $120 in the match. 149 plus a ball for Jim Grigaitis, so a chance for more bonus money with a strike right here. Right on the head pin, and 8-pin filled. 157 string for Jim Grigaitis. Really putting the pressure on Rich Clark, who really needs to mark in the final 2 frames here to stay close going into the 3rd string. Clark on the head pin strike.
Well, Rich Clark needs a 170 game to be tied with Jim Grigaitis through the first 2 games, and that certainly is not out of the realm of possibility. They can string another strike in here.
What great bowling by these 2 fine competitors. Clark missed the head pin there, but they're still going. They're still going. And that wood is touching the head pin, which makes it a really makeable shot for Rich Clark right here. The spare goes inside the strike. $150 plus whatever he gets in this frame for Rich Clark. So he stands to cut into that 13-pin lead after all.
Look at this, a tie at 157.
157. What a match we have. A 13-pin lead will carry over for Jim Grigaitis going to the 3rd string. We're 13 pins apart between these 2 fine bowlers as Candlepin Stars and Strikes continues from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on WNDS TV. Rich Clark will be first to bowl in the 3rd string of this match with Jim Grigaitis, both bowlers with a 157 in the 2nd string. Michael, that's some kind of bowling. And Clark starts out with a spare opportunity. Both bowlers really on fire in that 2nd string. Rich Clark, to his credit, really responded to the call. He'll take it the hard way that time.
And to see a couple of 400s today, pretty good likelihood.
286 for Grigaitis, 273 for Clark. Clark working on a spare. This is a triple wood situation, but it doesn't appear as though there should be much of a problem. Bowlers hate triple woods, though, because they never really know what's going to happen.
I know. But that was pretty much a gimme.
And Grigaitis responds with 9. Each bowler has responded to the other throughout the course of the match. There's a spare. The irony of this whole thing is one of these bowlers is going to bowl a 400 and lose.
That's true. After Rich Clark had 428 last week in his win over Rich Lottie, beat him by over 70 pins. This match will probably be closer, and as you point out, somebody will bowl 400 and lose today.
Well, Rich Clark started out with 2 spares. Grigaitis did one better. He starts out with a spare and a strike.
Don Richmond is our bowler next week. Our runner-up today takes home $175.
That time Rich threw it past the head pin, one of his rare misses this afternoon and last week when he was on the head pin in his win over Rich Lottie. Played it to the outside and almost made the spare. It'll be a 9 box for Rich Clark.
Rich Clark was the New Hampshire State Singles Champion last year with a 749 5-string total. He was also the New Hampshire State All Events runner-up behind Joe Ashline, who you saw as well last year in the Tournament of Champions. So it's been a good year for Rich Clark, appearing the last couple seasons here on WNDS's Candlepin Stars and Strikes.
And the spare for Rich Clark. 3rd mark in 4 frames. Now Jim Grigaitis working on 2 marks in a row. Looking for some bonus money. He already has $120 in the match. Rich Clark has $50 in bonus money in this match. Well, he broke up the split and has the 4 horsemen on the right with some wood. This is a $50 shot right here for Jim Grigaitis. The head pin still stands.
It's a good break for Rich Clark, who has only an open frame opposite of Jim Grigaitis in the 3rd.
49 through 3. Grigaitis has picked up 6 pins. He leads by 19 box to box, but Clark has a spare in the 4th frame. Continuing to acknowledge those of you who sent in cards and letters to us over the past several months, as Grigaitis with an 8-pin drop. Want to thank Virginia McRae of Malden, Massachusetts for her nice note, letting us know how much she appreciates watching Candlepin Stars and Strikes each week on WNDS TV, and we're happy that she's out there watching week after week. Oh, a spare shot for Jim Grigaitis to match the spare in the 4th box from Rich Clark. So we take a break. Both bowlers working on spares. We're in the 3rd string of a very close match between Rich Clark and Jim Grigaitis on Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. Rich Clark getting ready to bowl in the 5th frame of the 3rd string. He's working on a spare. He has 3 marks in the first 4 boxes of the 3rd string, as does Jim Grigaitis. Grigaitis came into the string with a 13-pin lead. Still essentially has that 13-pin lead intact, plus a couple. Look at that spare for Rich Clark. His 2nd spare in a row, his 4th mark in 5 boxes. He needs bigger fills than the 4 he had in the last spare. How about a 9 fill? Is that a little bit better?
And that was very close to being a strike as well. But a 9 will do as 2 pieces of rolling wood head toward the pin.
Rich would like that one on the left to stop right about there. It's in a pretty good position for him. That's a $50 spare for Rich Clark. He now has $100 in bonus money in the match. And he continues to put the pressure on Jim Grigaitis. Grigaitis with 3 marks in 4 boxes, bowling in box 5. These guys like pressure, don't they?
I was just thinking, neither of them is really setting the tone per se. They're both on a very even keel. Other than the 13-pin difference in the first game, it's almost been blow for blow here in the last game and a half, including this one.
Grigaitis has had bigger fills, which has helped him add to his lead, but he missed the spare right there, which will allow Clark to move a little bit closer. That'll be a 10 box for Jim Grigaitis. Box to box, he's added 2 pins to his lead. He leads by 15 pins, but now Rich Clark has a spare in the 6th frame. Bounced that one right down, but got a pretty good drop of 7.
Skip lob. 3-6-10 remaining for the spare.
Missed the spare again. So now Clark will have an opportunity to get a little closer.
This is really the first chink in the armor of Jim Grigaitis that we've seen today, missing back-to-back spare leaves.
10 box for Jim Grigaitis, 88 through 6. A chance for Rich Clark to get back into the match. Working on a spare, Clark. We are virtually even in this match right now. Box to box, it's a 5-pin lead for Jim Grigaitis.
But there's no denying the momentum swing has kind of swung in the direction of Rich Clark.
That was another $20, by the way, for Rich with that strike. He has another ball to fill the strike. He'll fill it with just a 6. Is 112 through 7. What a 10 box. 122 through 8 for Rich Clark.
He just needs another 5 pins to go over 400.
Now Jim Grigaitis finds himself needing a mark. Missed the head pin.
This will come down to the last 2 frames. See who advances to bowl 2nd seed down Richmond next week.
Well, he didn't get much out of it. I thought he deserved better based on where the ball landed, but 6 pins down, 4 to go for Jim Grigaitis. There's a 10 bucks. Wow. This match is dead even, virtually even right now. 1 pin separating the bowlers box to box.
Jim Grigaitis continues now to miss the head pin to the right-hand side. He's pinned very well. He actually has not had a frame where he's left a pin standing.
And a 10 box there for Grigaitis. 108 for Grigaitis. A 1-pin lead now for Rich Clark. With 2 boxes to go. It was a 13-pin lead for Grigaitis coming into the match, coming into the 3rd string rather. And now Clark with a 14-pin lead in this string leads the match by 1.
The 6 pin has nestled up a little closer to the 3, but it's the troublesome 8 pin in the back row that cause problems here.
Rich Clark leaves the 8-pin standing, as Mike Morin suggested he may. .132. He's at .405 in the match. Both bowlers will go over 400. Grigaitis is already at .394 with 2 boxes to go. Clark on the head pin.
Might get a little help if that wood stays frozen, but it seems to be rolling back toward the corner.
Tough shot here for Rich Clark.
The diamond, 3, 5, 6, and 9. Very difficult spare. Doesn't look that tough, but it is.
The sleeper pin in the back again is a tough one. He got it.
Nice.
Big spare for Rich Clark in the 10th frame.
That will force Grigaitis to mark at least once. Of course,
now this ball is very important for Rich Clark.
I was going to say, he's got to do better on his fill here than some of the previous boxes. He's got a couple of 6s and a 4 for fills earlier this game.
This is a very important ball. And he'll take a 9. 151 for Rich Clark in the 3rd string. Grigaitis needs a 138 to tie the match, so he needs a mark. He needs a couple of marks. How about that to start? We're looking at the possibility of a tie.
This is true.
The possibility does exist. It certainly would take some doing, but it's there.
138 is what he needs to tie.
Right.
Well, yeah. Yeah, we'll take an odd combination of pins.
It would take an odd combination. Now working on a strike.
Well, he does spray him around, doesn't he? Just catches a piece of the head pin and gets him to sprinkle all over the place. Needs a mark here to win.
Needs to make this shot.
Yep. It's all coming down right here. And he'll be going right for the V, the 2 pins intersecting there on the left-hand side.
If he makes this shot. He did not make the shot.
Going to lose by 2 pins if he makes this. Imagine that 422 or 423. Yeah, 422. Losing. Bye. What a finish.
136 and a 422 to 424 for Rich Clark. What a match you have just witnessed between Rich Clark and Jim Grigaitis, with Clark advancing 424 to 422. We'll come back to talk to the bowlers in just a moment from Leda Lanes in Nashua on Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. It's not very often that you bowl a 422 and lose, but that's what happened to Jim Grigaitis here this afternoon, and you were telling me you can't remember that happening to you before.
No, usually 422 is a good number, but I come down to that last ball in the last box, and I thought I made a good shot, just didn't go, and home we go.
Well, it was a great show between you and Rich. Congratulations. We have $175 for finishing as runner-up and $120 in bonus money. Jim Grigaitis from Brockton, Massachusetts, everybody.
Later. Nice to meet you.
Michael, 422, and you come out on the short end. Not very often that it happens.
Exactly. Now how are we going to turn out on the bonus ball? Let's see how that works.
Let's have Rich Clark roll a bonus ball, and we'll see if we can match him up with a winner right here. Our winner, Rich Clark. It is a 7. Let's see if we can match it up. We have a lot of 7s in the tank here, and not a match this time, though. We have Mrs. Catherine O'Meara from Saugus, and she said 8. We have a nice consolation prize for you, Catherine. And we have 10 strings of bowling here for Lorraine Ruthier of Claremont, New Hampshire. 10 strings of bowling at Leda Lanes. That was quite a finish, Richard.
Yeah, it was it was a good match. You know, we both thrown a lot of marks and made it exciting for the fans and that. And came down to the last box. I knew I had to throw at least one mark in the last two. And I looked back at the 8th box of the last string when I had 4 pins standing. I said, I got to go for the 10 box because I'm trailing. And that was a big 10, but truthfully, I thought Jim was going to get the spare. I got the breaks, and hopefully I can take advantage in the next match.
Well, congratulations. We look forward to seeing you next week. We have $120 in bonus money and an appearance next week for Rich Clark as he moves up the ladder.
Don Richmond standing by next week, 428, 424. What will Rich Clark do next week? We'll find out.
Thanks very much for joining us. From Mike Morin and our entire WNDS crew, I'm Dick Lutz from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. We'll see you next week on Candlepin Stars and Strikes. So long, everyone.